Dawn was cold and damp when Tenil finally returned to the mansion. He avoided the main entrance, opting for the side gate to the gardens that gave direct access to the rear of the property, the same path servants used so as not to disturb the family during their comings and goings. Now, ironically, it was he who skulked like a servant. The smell of the port district still clung to his clothes to back out, cheap perfume, others' sweat. Tenil pulled his cloak more tightly around his body, moving through the dark gardens with silent steps. The moon was nearly full, bathing the rose bushes and fountains in pale silver, creating long shadows that seemed to watch him, judge him. When he reached the side door leading to the service corridors, he paused. His hand was on the doorknob when he heard the voice, "Young master." Tenil spun abruptly, his hand going instinctively to where a weapon should be but wasn't. 'Cause nobles didn't carry hidden weapons, and that was something that would need to change. It was just Marin, the veteran maid who had served the family for over 30 years. She stood a few meters behind, wrapped in a simple shawl, a protected candle in her hand. Her kind but tired eyes studied him without judgment. Marin Tenil relaxed marginally. "You startled me. Forgive me, sir. I was checking if the gates were locked when I saw you enter." She approached, the candlelight illuminating her wrinkled face. "Is everything all right? You left without informing Lady Morel?" "She would be worried if she knew." "She doesn't need to know," Tenil said, sharper than intended. Then, softening his tone, "I just needed air. To walk, to think. The mansion sometimes feels too ... suffocating." Marin studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I understand, young master. Grief has strange ways of affecting us." She paused, then added in a lower voice, "But please, be careful. With your father and brother's death, there are those who may see opportunity in your vulnerability." Tenil felt something tighten in his chest. Marin had always been more than a maid. She had helped raise him as a child, bandaged his scraped knees, listened to his childish problems. She genuinely cared. "I'll be careful," he promised, and for the first time in days, the promise wasn't empty. "And Marin, thank you for everything." She smiled, that maternal smile he'd known forever. "Go rest, young master. Tomorrow brings new challenges, I'm sure." She made to turn, but paused, and perhaps considered taking a bath before sleeping. "You smell of places Lady Morel would prefer not to know you visited." Despite everything, Tenil almost smiled. "Yes, Marin." He entered, moved through the silent corridors to his chambers. The night servants had left a basin with water and clean towels, anticipating his eventual arrival. Tenil undressed, washed quickly, scrubbing the smell of the underworld from his skin with perfumed soap that smelled of lavender and mint. Brutal contrast. Cornelius's world and the mansion's world, separated by water and soap. How long until water and soap were no longer enough? Until the smell of shadows became permanent. He lay down on the enormous bed, looking at the canopy above. His body was exhausted, but his mind raced. Thoughts about Cornelius, about training, about transformation, about the path he had chosen with no turning back. "You need to kill who you are," Cornelius had said. Tenil closed his eyes, and for a moment, he saw two futures splitting. One where he remained the noble Lord Vorten, rebuilding his house through conventional methods, eventually succumbing to Kasimir or being absorbed by court politics. And another where he became something different. Something in the shadows. Something dangerous. Sleep took him before he could decide which future he preferred. But deep down, he already knew. The choice had already been made when he crossed that door at the Raven's Nest. Tenil woke to insistent knocking on the door. Sunlight already invaded the room through the thick curtains. He had slept longer than intended. "Young master." A male servant's voice, urgent but respectful. "Lady Morel requests your immediate presence in the reception hall. There's an important visitor." Tenil sat up abruptly, the fog of sleep dissipating quickly. "Who?" Lord Marcus Aries, sir. He insists he has urgent matters to discuss with you. Aries Tenil knew the name an ancient military house, known for producing some of the best commanders in the border wars. Lord Marcus Aries had served under his father in several campaigns. But why would he be here now? Tell him I'll be there in 10 minutes. Tenil dressed quickly but carefully impeccable white shirt, dark blue vest with discreet house four-tone embroidery, black trousers, polished boots. He checked his reflection in the mirror, adjusting his hair, ensuring nothing in his appearance suggested he had spent the previous night in a dubious establishment in the Port District. Perfect mask. The noble Lord Vorten. When he descended to the reception hall, he found his mother already there, seated in one of the velvet-upholstered armchairs, conversing politely with the visitor. Lady Morel wore a black morning dress, but had recovered part of her composure straight back. Hands delicately folded in her lap, controlled expression. She was also performing, the dignified widow. Lord Marcus Aries stood near the window, and Tenil quickly assessed him. The man was about 50, his body still robust and muscular, despite his age, unmistakable military posture shoulders back. Chin raised, feet shoulder-width apart, as if permanently in combat stance. Gray hair cut short, a face with hard features marked by battle scars, brown eyes that assessed everything with tactical precision. He wore formal military uniform, not the ornate court clothes, but the real uniform of commanders, campaign medals hanging on his chest. A real soldier, not a noble playing at military. Young Vorten. Lord Aries turned when Tenil entered, his voice deep and rough. Finally, forgive me for invading your morning without warning, but there are matters that cannot wait. Tenil bowed his head respectfully. Lord Aries, it's an honor to receive you. My father always spoke highly of your campaigns together. Caius was an exceptional man. Aries' expression hardened marginally. His death was unacceptable, and the circumstances too suspicious for my comfort. Tenil felt his attention sharpen. This was interesting. Do you have information about what happened? Not concrete information, but instincts. Aries walked to the center of the hall, hands crossed behind his back. I served under your father for 10 years. I know how he thought, how he planned. And the idea that he was caught in an ambush by simple bandits? He shook his head. Impossible. Caius was too cautious, too experienced. Someone sold him out. Someone knew exactly where he would be. Silence weighed in the hall. Lady Morel pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes welling up again. Tenil kept his expression neutral, but inside, his mind worked. Aries suspected. But did he suspect enough to act? Those are serious accusations, Lord Aries. Tenil said carefully. Do you have evidence? None the court would accept, but I have eyes and ears. And in the days before your father's death, there were ... movements. Troops from certain noble houses being repositioned, mercenaries being discreetly hired. Whispered conversations in corridors. Aries fixed Tenil with a penetrating gaze. Something was being planned. And your father, unfortunately, was in the way. Whose way? Tenil allowed urgency to leak into his voice. Who would gain from his death? Aries hesitated, and Tenil saw the calculation happening behind those soldiers' eyes. Finally, the commander spoke. I could speculate, but speculation without proof is just gossip. And gossip can be dangerous, especially for someone in your vulnerable position. He paused. That's why I'm here, actually, to offer ... assistance. There it was, the real reason for the visit. What kind of assistance? Aries smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You're young Tenil, inexperienced in the ways of war and court. Your father knew this. He told me personally he was worried about your preparation to eventually assume greater responsibilities. He walked closer. I could help with that. Train you in the art of the sword, in military tactics, in how to command men. You're heir to an ancient house, but you need real strength to maintain it. And strength comes from proper training. It was a tempting offer. And Tenil could see the logic. Having a veteran commander from the border wars as a military mentor would be extremely valuable, especially considering the path he was about to walk. But there was something more. Tenil could feel it. No one offered training out of pure kindness. That's extremely generous, Lord Ares. Tenil said slowly. But I presume there's something you want in return. Ares laughed, a hoarse sound, straight to the point. Good, I appreciate that. He gestured to a maid, who immediately brought wine. Ares took a glass, offered another to Tenil. Yes, there is something. An alliance. Our families forged through something more permanent than simple words. Marriage, Tenil completed, his stomach sinking slightly. Exactly. Ares drank his wine. I have 3 daughters. The middle one, Estella, is 21. She's exceptional. Trained in combat since childhood, fluent in 3 languages, educated in the finest noble arts. More importantly, she understands loyalty, honor, duty. She would be a perfect wife for you. Lady Morel, who had remained quiet until then, finally spoke. Lord Ares, with all due respect, my son has just lost his father and brother. Speaking of marriage at this time seems ... hasty. With all due respect, Lady Morel. It's exactly because he lost his father and brother that this is urgent. Ares turned to her. House Vorten is vulnerable. Without strong allies, without military protection, without matrimonial connections to anchor it in power networks. Wolves are circling, madame. And if Tenil doesn't strengthen himself quickly, he'll be devoured. And marrying your daughter would strengthen me, Tenil said, keeping his tone neutral. Yes, our house has military influence that yours no longer has. I have 4 regiments under my direct command, contacts in all the kingdom's important garrisons, and respect among veteran officers. Ares set his glass aside. More importantly, I have loyalty. Loyalty to your father, who saved my life twice. And I'm willing to transfer that loyalty to you. But loyalty needs a bond, needs shared blood. Marriage unites our houses, makes our interests the same. Tenil drank his wine, buying time to think. The offer was transparent in its manipulation. Ares wanted to anchor House Vorten under his influence through matrimonial ties. If Tenil married Estella, he would be indebted, connected, would be ... controlled. Exactly what Kasimir had tried to do with the commercial offer to Lord Kasimir. But the training was genuinely valuable, and Tenil desperately needed martial skills if he was going to survive in the world he was about to enter. Decision: accept the useful, refuse the manipulative. Lord Ares. Tenil set his glass aside, looking directly into the commander's eyes. I deeply appreciate your offer of training, and I accept. It would be an honor to learn from someone of your experience and reputation. Ares smiled, triumphant. Excellent. So about the marriage, however. Tenil raised a hand, cutting in. As for marriage to Miss Estella, I must respectfully decline. For now? Ares' smile froze. Decline. It's not the right time. Tenil kept his voice firm, but polite. My mother is correct. Dove just buried my father and brother. Entering into matrimonial negotiations now would seem disrespectful to their memory. More importantly, he leaned slightly forward. I need to first rebuild my house, prove I'm worthy of inheriting it. What kind of man would I be if I offered a wife a house in ruins? What future could I promise someone when my own future is uncertain? It was a clever refusal, wrapped in nobility and consideration. Difficult to argue against without seeming insensitive. Ares studied Tenil for a long moment, and something changed in his expression. The tactical gaze, reassessing. This boy was smarter than he initially appeared. I understand. Ares finally said, his voice more cautious now. Then perhaps ... meet Estella. Without formal commitment. just so you can assess compatibility. She's here, actually. I insisted she come, in case you agreed to meet her. Tenel hesitated. Refusing completely would be a direct insult, but agreeing, ... Lady Morel lightly touched his arm. Meeting the young lady commits you to nothing, my son, and it would be discourteous to refuse when she's already here. She was right. Tenel nodded. Of course. It would be an honor to meet Miss Estella. Lord Ares left to fetch his daughter, leaving Tenel and Lady Morel momentarily alone. His mother immediately gripped his arm more tightly. You were wise to refuse the marriage, she whispered. Ares wants control, not alliance. But be careful, he's not a man who accepts refusals easily. I know Tenel covered her hand with his, but the training is valuable. I can manage his matrimonial expectations. I hope so, my son. The garden door opened, and Lord Ares returned, but not alone. Behind him came a young woman who made Tenel pause involuntarily. Stella Ares was ... impressive. Not in the conventional sense of court beauty, she didn't have the artificial delicacy of ladies who frequented balls. There was something more to her, something dangerous beneath the elegance. Long, perfectly straight, dark blue hair fell to her waist, some strands braided delicately near her face. Intense blue eyes that assessed Tenel with the same tactical precision as her father. Pale skin, delicate features, but with a firmness in the jaw that suggested iron will. She wore something between noble clothing and combat uniform, flowing white tunic over dark blue trousers. Fine leather boots reaching her knees. And most impressive, 2 crossed swords on her back, the hilts visible over her shoulders. They weren't decorative swords, they were real weapons. The blades wide and the hilts worked with golden details that gleamed in the sunlight. She was a swordswoman, for real, Estella. Lord Ares gestured. This is Lord Tenil Vorten. Tenel, my daughter, Estella. Estella bowed her head respectfully, but her eyes never left Tenel's, assessing, measuring, judging. Lord Vorten. My condolences for your loss. Your father was a great man. Her voice was soft but firm, each word pronounced with precision. Thank you, Miss Ares, Tenel replied, forcing himself not to look away first. My father always mentioned yours with great respect. They bled together, Estella said simply. There's no stronger bond. Slightly uncomfortable silence. Lady Morel, always the perfect hostess, intervened. Why don't you walk through the gardens? The morning is beautiful, and you young people should take the opportunity to talk. It was clearly orchestrated leaving them alone so they could get to know each other better. Tenel wanted to refuse, but there was no polite exit. It would be a pleasure. He offered his arm. Estella looked at the arm for a moment, then completely ignored it, walking ahead toward the gardens. Tenel blinked, surprised for the first time in days. Then, fighting an involuntary smile, he followed her. They walked in silence along the stone paths between the perfectly symmetrical rose bushes. Estella maintained a respectable distance, hands crossed behind her back, perfect military posture. It was she who broke the silence. You don't want to marry me. Straight to the point, Tenel appreciated that. It's not about you personally, Miss Ares. Of course not. You barely know me. She stopped near a fountain, turning to face him. It's about control. My father wants to anchor your house to ours. And you, intelligently, perceive the trap. Tenel studied her. There was something refreshing about the brutal honesty. And you? What do you want? Estella smiled, but there was no real warmth. I want not to be used as a piece of political bargaining. But I have no choice. I'm a noble's daughter, and that's my function. She lightly touched the hilt of one of the swords. That's why I learned to fight. At least in combat, I control my own destiny. Do you really know how to use those swords? Tenil asked, genuinely curious. I can defeat any man in my father's guard. It wasn't boasting. It was simple fact. And I could probably defeat you in seconds. No offense. None taken. You're correct, Tenil admitted. I'm inadequately trained for someone in my position. That's why my father offered training. He saw weakness and wanted to exploit it. Estella resumed walking, but accepting the training without accepting the marriage. Smart move. You take the benefit without the trap. And that doesn't offend you? Why would it offend me? She looked at him with genuine confusion. I don't know you. You don't know me. Marrying strangers because our father's wish, it is ... medieval. Preferable would be choosing our own partners. But again, she gestured vaguely. Nobles don't have that luxury. Tenil found himself liking her. Not romantically, he barely felt anything beyond rage and determination these days. But there was something respectable about her honesty. So what do we do now? He asked. Now Estella stopped again. You accept my father's training. Learn everything you can. Become strong. And when you're ready, if you still need a military alliance, reconsider the offer. But on your own terms, not his. And you? I continue waiting for a man who sees me as more than bargaining currency. She smiled, this time with a touch of sadness. But I'm not holding my breath. They returned to the hall where their parents waited. Lord Ares watched them with obvious expectation, clearly hoping the meeting had changed Tenil's decision. It hadn't, but it had planted a seed of mutual respect. Lord Ares, Tenil said formally, I accept your offer of training. When can we begin? Ares looked simultaneously satisfied and frustrated he'd gotten half of what he wanted. Tomorrow at dawn, come to the training fields at my property. Bring clothes you don't mind tearing and bleeding in. He cast a glance at Estella. And as for? Marriage remains unavailable for now. Tenil cut in politely. But I appreciate the opportunity to meet Miss Estella. She is ... remarkable. Estella bowed her head slightly, and for a second, her lips curved into something that might have been amusement. After formal farewells and the Ares' departure, Lady Morel held Tenil's arm again. You're accumulating mentors, my son, she observed softly. Just make sure you're using them and not being used. I know what I'm doing, mother. Tenil kissed her forehead. But as he climbed to his chambers, he wondered if that was true. Cornelius would teach him to operate in the shadows. Ares would teach him to fight. Both for their own reasons, both expecting something in return. And he, in the middle, trying to build something from scratch while balancing masks and loyalties and secrets. The transformation had begun. But where would it lead him? He didn't know. But he knew there was no turning back. The smell hit Tenil before he even fully entered the warehouse mold. Rotten wood, rat urine, and something indefinable that only prolonged decay could produce. He suppressed the urge to cover his nose with his sleeve, remembering Cornelius's words from the previous night. If you can't stand the smell, you won't be able to stand what we'll do here. Moonlight filtered through broken boards in the high ceiling, creating silver stripes in an ocean of shadows. The warehouse was empty, except for rotting crates stacked irregularly, worm-eaten wooden pillars, and what appeared to be dark stains on the floor that Tenil preferred not to investigate too closely. Late Cornelius's voice echoed from the shadows to the left. Tenil spun, but couldn't immediately locate his mentor. His eyes were still adjusting to the darkness, and Cornelius apparently knew how to use that to his advantage. 3 minutes, Tenil replied, keeping his voice firm despite the tension in his shoulders. Hardly counts as late in the world you're about to enter. 3 minutes means the difference between life and death. Cornelius emerged from behind a pillar, its imposing figure dressed entirely in black Tadane of the elegant suits he'd worn at the Raven's Nest. Practical, its clothes, dark, without ornamentation. Functional, he carried something in his hands. Catch Cornelius threw the object, and Tenil caught it in the air by reflex. It was a knife, not ornate, not noble, just a simple steel blade with worn wooden handle. Functional. Deadly. This is for for you to learn that real weapons don't have jewels embedded in them. Cornelius walked in a circle around Tenil, his boots making muffled sounds against the dusty floor. Have you held a knife before? Dinners? Yes. Cornelius snorted, a sound between laughter and disdain. Boy, you're so green, we could plant seeds in you. He stopped in front of Tenil. Hold it right. No, not like that. You're not cutting roast meat. Blade up, thumb over the handle for stability, elbow close to the body. That way you maintain control and force in each movement. Tenil adjusted the grip, feeling the uncomfortable weight of the weapon in his hand. It was heavier than he'd imagined, and the metal was cold even through the handle. Good, now attack me. What? You heard me. Attack. Try to stab me. Cornelius opened his arms. Come on, Lord Vorten. Show me that rage that brought you to me. Tenil hesitated. This was absurd. He wasn't a street assassin. He was ... But wasn't that what he was trying to become? Something different? Something capable of destroying Kasimir. He advanced, blade pointing at Cornelius's chest in a linear and obvious movement. Cornelius didn't even move, just tilted his body slightly to the side, and Tenil's blade cut only empty air. Before Tenil could react, an enormous hand closed around his wrist, squeezing with brutal force. The knife fell to the floor with a metallic clink. And then Tenil was flying. He hit the wooden floor with enough force to expel all the air from his lungs, pain exploding in his back and shoulder. He choked, trying to breathe, eyes involuntarily watering. Pathetic. Cornelius stood over him, his expression not of anger, but calculated disappointment. You telegraphed the movement before you even moved, your shoulders tensed, your eyes fixed on the target, your weight shifted forward. Anyone with half the training would have disarmed you in less than a second. Like I just did. Tenil coughed, finally managing to pull air back into his lungs. His pride hurt more than his body. Again, Cornelius kicked the knife back toward Tenil, and this time, try not to die in the first 2 seconds. 3 hours. For 3 exhausting and humiliating hours. Cornelius taught Tenil the fundamentals of knife combat. Not the elegant forms that noble swords possessed. Not the ornate techniques that fencing masters taught in illuminated halls. This was street combat. Dirty, brutal, efficient. You don't want to clean. Fight. Cornelius instructed as he demonstrated his own knife tracing deadly arcs that Tenil could barely follow with his eyes. You want a finished fight? Quick. Eyes, throat, stomach. Don't try to be pretty. Try to survive. Tenil learned to hurt, to stab, to cut, not to kill immediately, but to incapacitate. He learned where arteries ran close to the skin's surface, where crucial nerves could be severed to paralyze an opponent. He learned that killing a man wasn't like in Knight's Tales. It was intimate, bloody, ugly. When Cornelius finally let him stop, Tenil was drenched in sweat. The clothes he had brought simple, but still of noble quality, now torn and stained. His hands trembled from exhaustion, blisters forming where the knife handle had repeatedly rubbed. He sat heavily against a pillar, pulling air in ragged gulps. Water. Cornelius threw a leather bottle, which Tenil caught with clumsy hands. He drank avidly, the liquid going down rough through his parched throat. That was ... double quotes Tenil began, but couldn't find adequate words. Necessary. Cornelius sat on a nearby crate, lighting his pipe. Aromatic smoke filled the space around them, gently disguising the less pleasant smells of the warehouse. You need to understand something, boy. The world you know, ballrooms, elegant dinners, polite conversations, is a lie. A beautiful lie, but a lie nonetheless. The real world, the world where true power is forged, is dirty, it's violent. And if you don't learn to operate in it, it doesn't matter how many noble titles you possess. You'll be dead. I understand, Tenil said, and for the first time he really understood. Not intellectually, he had always known violence existed, but viscerally. feeling it in every aching muscle, every burning blister. No, you still don't fully understand. Cornelius released smoke slowly, but you're beginning to. And that's a start. He checked a pocket watch. We have 1 more hour before dawn. Enough time for you to meet someone. Who? As an answer, Cornelius whistled 3 short, sharp notes that echoed through the empty warehouse. For a moment, nothing. Then, movement in the shadows of the second floor. Tenil tensed automatically, his hand going to where the knife should be but wasn't, because Cornelius had confiscated it minutes ago. A figure descended wooden stairs that Tenil hadn't even noticed before, moving with an almost feline grace. When he emerged completely into the moonlight, Tenil saw, a young man, perhaps only a year or 2 older than him, tall and thin, almost skeletal. Dark brown skin, black curly hair tied in a slightly messy high bun. And his eyes. Tenil blinked, uncertain if he was seeing correctly in the weak light. The young man's eyes were different, one intense orange red, the other light amber, heterochromia, and both fixed on Tenil with an intensity that made his back straighten instinctively. It was like being dissected, assessed. Read the young man wore simple, dark clothes jacket with high collar wrapping his neck, worn trousers, silent boots. No ornamentation. Nothing that drew attention. But there was something about him, in the way he moved, how he looked, that suggested sharp intelligence hidden under deliberate simplicity. Tenil Vorten, the young man said, and his voice was soft, but had a strange quality as if each word were carefully chosen, weighed, measured before being released. 23 years old, second son of House Vorten until 6 days ago. Now heir. Recovering narcissist, virgin of real combat until 3 hours ago. He tilted his head slightly, those strange eyes never blinking. You're here because you want revenge against Lord Kasimir, but have no idea how to achieve it. You're desperate, scared beneath the anger, and completely out of your depth. Heavy silence filled the warehouse. Tenil felt anger and something more uncomfortable exposed vulnerability. How could this stranger read so much just by looking at him? Who the hell are you? The young man smiled, but it was a strange smile, slightly disconnected, as if he didn't practice much. Asher Kale, and I read people. He walked closer, those movements fluid and nervous at the same time, like a bird always alert. It's what I do better than anyone else alive. Cornelius uses me occasionally when he needs to know if someone is lying or when he needs to find weaknesses in targets. I'm good at it. Very good. Asher here. Cornelius intervened, tapping ash from his pipe, is what you might call my special consultant. When I need to assess if someone is trustworthy, or if a deal is a trap, or if an informant is selling truth or lies, I call Asher, and he's always right. Not always. Asher corrected with that strange and disarming honesty. 97% of the time. There's 3% where I'm wrong. Usually because the person in question is a genuine sociopath and doesn't emit the normal signals I read. But you're not a sociopath, Lord Vorten. You're just ... broken, and trying to glue the pieces back together. Differently, Tenil didn't know if he should feel offended or validated. Probably both. And why am I meeting you now? Asher exchanged glances with Cornelius, and something passed between them, some silent understanding. Then Asher turned his attention back to Tenil, because Cornelius believes you can be something interesting. And I agree. He approached closer, stopping just a meter away. Those heterochromatic eyes studying every micro-expression on Tenil's face. You're not like other nobles. There's something genuine in your anger. It's not performative. It's not to impress. It's real. It burns. And that interests me. Why? Because I've spent my entire life looking for someone worth following. Asher said simply, someone who was ... true. Not fake. Not playing games just for power. but someone with real purpose, real determination, willing to transform into whatever's necessary to achieve their goals. He smiled again, that strange smile. And you, Tenil Vorten, are that person. At least, you can be. If you survive what's coming. Cornelius stood up, putting away his pipe. Asher will help. Not like I teach you to fight, to kill, to survive. He'll teach you to read the people around you, to identify lies, to exploit psychological weaknesses, to manipulate without them realizing they're being manipulated. He placed a heavy hand on Tenil's shoulder. If you're going to build something that can threaten Kasimir, you can't do it alone. You need trustworthy people. People with skills you don't possess. Asher is one of those people. Tenil looked between the two men, the veteran warrior and the strange young man with eyes that saw too much. And he realized this was a test. Cornelius was assessing whether he could trust someone, whether he could build alliances, whether he could do what was necessary. All right. He extended his hand to Asher. Then let's work together. Asher looked at the hand for a long moment. Then, instead of shaking it, removed one of the fine leather gloves he wore and offered it to Tenil. I don't like direct physical contact, sorry, but I accept the alliance. He bowed his head again, that almost formal movement. And, Tenil, I'll teach you to see what I see. And when I'm done, you'll never look at people the same way again. The sun had barely risen when Tenil arrived at the training fields of the Ares property, and he could already feel every muscle in his body protesting. The 3 hours with Cornelius, followed by only 2 hours of restless sleep, had left his body in a state of constant rebellion. The blisters on his hands burned. His back ached where he had been repeatedly thrown on the wooden floor. And now, looking at the military training field stretching ahead, he knew the next hours would be equally brutal. Just in a different way. The training field was vast on open space, surrounded by low stone walls, with several clearly demarcated sectors. Fencing area marked by circles drawn in the compacted earth. Archery targets aligned at different distances. And straw dummies for practicing strikes. And in the distance, an area with obstacles walls to climb, ditches to jump, ropes to swing on. It was a battlefield in miniature. Lord Marcus Ares stood in the center of the fencing field, already dressed in training clothes, simple linen shirt, reinforced leather trousers, military boots worn by use. No ornamentations, no medals. Just a soldier ready to work. And beside him, Estella. She wore something similar to her father, practical dark trousers, fitted tunic allowing full movement, blue hair tied in an elaborate braid that kept every strand away from her face. Her 2 swords were on her back, the golden hilts gleaming under the growing sunlight. When Tenil approached, both turned. Lord Ares with neutral expression of military assessment. Estella with something that could have been curiosity or disdain's hard to tell. Late, Ares declared, checking his wristwatch. 5 minutes. Tenil replied, forcing firmness into his voice despite the exhaustion weighing on each word. On the battlefield, 5 minutes means death. Ares walked around Tenil in a slow circle, examining like a general examines troops. But I see you at least didn't sleep in a silk bed last night. Look like you've been dragged by horses. Just didn't sleep well. Tenil wasn't going to mention Cornelius. Wasn't going to mention knives and street combat and stinking warehouses. Ares stopped in front of him. Take this. He threw a training sword, solid wood, heavy, perfectly balanced. It had no sharp blade, but could easily break bones if wielded with force. Tenil caught the sword, and immediately his blistered hands protested. He suppressed a grimace, adjusting the grip to minimize contact with the most damaged areas. Estella noticed. Of course, she noticed. Those intense blue eyes missed nothing. Your hands are injured, she observed, voice neutral but not without curiosity. From what? Doesn't matter. Tenil replied too quickly. It matters if it's going to affect your training. Lord Ares intervened. Show me. There was no choice. Tenel extended his hands, revealing the red blisters and some already bursting at the pressure points where the knife handle had repeatedly rubbed. Ares studied them for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. It was a small smile, more in the eyes than the mouth. "You're training elsewhere. At night, I presume. It's with someone who doesn't care if your noble hands get damaged." He released Tenel's hands. "Good means you're taking this seriously. Means you're not just playing at soldier." "Father," Estella intervened, her voice carrying slight warning. "You said you weren't going to ask questions." "I didn't ask a question. I made an observation." Ares returned his attention to Tenel. "I don't care what you do in your nights, young Vorten. Just make sure when you get here, you can hold a sword without fainting." Now he took 2 steps back, unsheathing his own training sword. "Attack me, dacia vu." Cornelius had said exactly the same thing just hours ago. But this was different. Sword wasn't knife. Tenel had been trained in basic fencing like any noble choreographed movements. Formal duel techniques, the kind of thing done in friendly competitions where no one really got hurt. He assumed the stance he remembered: right foot forward, weight distributed, sword in high guard. Then advanced, executing a controlled descending strike. Ares blocked effortlessly, wood hitting wood with a hollow, satisfying sound. Then counterattacked, a quick lateral movement that Tenel barely managed to block in time. The impact reverberated through his arms, sending waves of pain through his blistered hands. "You fight like a noble," Ares commented, pushing Tenel back with brute force. "Light, controlled, predictable. On a real battlefield, you'd be dead in seconds." He attacked again. This time, a sequenced descending strike, horizontal thrust. Tenel blocked the first 2, but the third caught him off guard, the wooden tip hitting his ribs with enough force to steal his breath. Tenel staggered back, coughing. "Dead," Ares declared. Again, for 2 hours, Lord Ares methodically destroyed him. Each mistake pointed out with painful strike. Each weak stance exploited without mercy. Each telegraphed movement instantly punished. Tenel learned that noble fencing was theater. Beautiful, useless. Military fencing was survival. Ugly, efficient. "You need to unlearn," Ares instructed as he forced Tenel to repeat a movement for the 15th time. "Forget the elegant forms some perfumed master taught you. This isn't an honor duel, it's war. And in war, you use what works. Dirty strikes, kicks, headbutts. Whatever's necessary for your opponent to be on the ground and you standing." Finally, when the sun was high and Tenel could barely lift the sword, Ares called a pause. "Water, shade." 15 minutes, he pointed to a nearby tent. Tenel dragged himself there, collapsing on a wooden bench. A servant brought water and he drank avidly, the liquid going down rough but necessary. "You're doing better than expected." Tenel raised his eyes. Stella stood in the tent entrance, arms crossed, analytical expression. "Doesn't seem like it," he replied, voice hoarse. "You're on your feet, still holding the sword, still trying." She walked inside, getting her own mug of water. "Half the men my father trains quit in the first hour. You're in your second. And with blistered hands that probably should have been bandaged before you picked up a sword." "I don't quit easily." "Yes." I noticed that she sat on the opposite bench, studying him with those intense blue eyes. "Can I ask a direct question?" "You can. Why are you really doing this?" "Training with my father. And whoever you train with at night that leaves your hands like that." She tilted her head slightly. "It's not just to rebuild House Vorten, like you told him. There's something more, something darker." Tenel studied her back. There was honesty in her. That same quality he'd noticed during their first meeting. She didn't play games, didn't perform. She simply was. He could lie. Should lie, probably. But looking at Estella, seeing that brutal honesty in her eyes, something in him decided to risk truth. At least partial truth. Revenge, he said simply. Against Kasimir, it wasn't a question. She already knew. You think you can defeat him? He controls half the court, Hao's armies. And you, single quotes, double quotes. She gestured vaguely at him. A 23-year-old noble with blistered hands and no real experience. For now, Tenil kept his eyes fixed on hers. But I won't stay like this. I'll learn. I'll transform. And one day, I'll be ready. Silence. Estella studied him for a long moment, those analytical eyes dissecting every word, every micro-expression. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. A small smile, but genuine. Good, because I hate him too. Tenil blinked. Kasimir. Yes, he killed a friend of my father's years ago. Another commander from the border wars. It was disguised as an accident, but everyone knew the truth. My father couldn't do anything. Kasimir was too protected, but the hatred remained. She drank her water. If you really go after him, if you really try to bring him down, I want to be involved. Why? It's because spending my life being a piece of political bargaining drives me crazy. Because training every day and never using these skills for something real is frustrating. And because, double quotes, she paused, choosing words carefully. I'd rather die doing something important than live doing nothing. Tenil felt something shift. Possibility opening. Estella wasn't just a commander's daughter. She was a real warrior. And she wanted what he wanted. Purpose, revenge, meaning. If I asked you to join something dangerous, something that could cost you everything, would you accept? Estella didn't hesitate. Yes. Tenil could barely move when he arrived at the Raven's Nest that night. 2 days of brutal training nights with Cornelius learning knife and street combat. Mornings with Ares being beaten with wooden swords had left his body in a state of total rebellion. Every muscle screamed. The blisters on his hands had burst and formed new ones. And he was reasonably certain at least 2 ribs were cracked from where Ares had hit him particularly hard that morning. But he was here, still standing, still trying. Cornelius was in his usual office, but this time he wasn't alone. Asher was there too, sitting in a chair in the corner. A small leather notebook open in his lap, writing something in tiny handwriting. He looked up when Tenil entered, those heterochromatic eyes gleaming in the candlelight. You look worse than yesterday, Asher observed. Muscles too tense, movements stiff. You're training elsewhere too. Combat with larger weapons. I judge by the way your shoulders are positioned. Sword Tenil confirmed, collapsing into a chair with less grace than he should. With Lord Ares. Ah, Cornelius released smoke from his pipe. It's not you're doing double training? Good, shows dedication. Also shows stupidity. You'll kill yourself from exhaustion before you're strong enough to use these skills. I can handle it. For now, Asher closed the notebook. But your sleep patterns are destruct. DTRUD. Double quotes, he frowned. How do you say destructive? Cornelius corrected patiently. Thank you. Asher nodded. Your body needs rest to build muscle. Without adequate rest, you'll just get weaker. He's right. Cornelius tapped ash from his pipe. But that's not why I called you here tonight. We need to talk about the next step. Tenil straightened in his chair, ignoring the protest of his ribs. What next step? You're learning skills. Good, necessary. But skills alone don't bring down someone like Kasimir. Cornelius stood up, walking to a wall where a large map of the kingdom hung. To do what you want to do, you need more than personal strength. You need organization, structure, people. A criminal organization, Tenil said slowly, understanding where this was going. Not exactly. Asher intervened, those intense eyes fixed on Tenil. Criminal organization sounds ... random. Chaotic? What? Cornelius is suggesting is more ... precise. A network, controlled, with specific purpose instead of just profit. Cornelius nodded, pointing at the map. Kasimir has power because he has resources, information, and people willing to do dirty work. You need the same, but built in a way that no one connects to you. He turned to Tenil. You need a separate identity, a persona that operates in the shadows while Lord Tenil Vorten lives his normal public life. Tenil felt something tighten in his chest, part excitement, part fear. How would that work? Asher stood up, walking to the map too, fingers tracing invisible lines. You create hierarchical structure, layers. At the top, you, but no one knows it's you. They know only a title. A name, something that inspires fear and loyalty. His fingers stopped over the capital. Below you, trustworthy people who know the truth. Me, Cornelius. Maybe one or two more, and below that, his fingers spread across the map, operational cells. People who do the work but never see the top. Never know who really commands. This keeps you safe. Cornelius completed. If a cell is captured, they can't deliver you because they don't know who you are. And even if they suspect, they have no proof. Meanwhile, Lord Tenil Vorten continues appearing at social events, rebuilding his house, being visible and apparently harmless. Tenil processed this, his mind working through the implications. It was brilliant and terrifying. And what would this organization do? Whatever's necessary. Cornelius replied simply. Information gathering on Kasimir and his allies. Small attacks on his resources, not obvious, not traceable. Recruitment of people with reasons to hate him. Building a network of contacts in the underworld you can use. He paused, and eventually, when you're strong enough, elimination of his allies. One by one. Isolating him until he's vulnerable. This will take years, Tenil said. Yes, Asher confirmed. 2, 3, maybe 4 years. Kasimir built his power over decades. You won't bring him down in months. But with patience, with planning, with the right moves, Double quotes, he smiled that strange smile of his. You can do something he'll never see coming until it's too late. Tenil was silent for a long moment, looking at the map. At the cities and towns and roads crossing the kingdom. At the enormous space Kasimir controlled versus the small space that was all that remained of House Vorten. It was a war. Not with armies and flags, but with shadows and secrets and invisible movements. And he was about to enter it completely. We need a name, he finally said. If I'm going to use a separate identity, it needs to be something that means something. Something that represents what we're trying to do. Cornelius and Asher exchanged glances. Then Cornelius walked to his desk, opening a drawer and pulling out an old book, Norse mythology, Tenil recognized by the worn cover. There's a story. Cornelius opened the book, leafing through yellowed pages until he found what he was looking for. About a wolf named Fenrir, son of Loki. The gods feared him because it was prophesied he would destroy Odin during Ragnarok, the end of the world. So they chained him, bound him with magical chains, hoping he would never be freed. He looked up, but the prophecy says that eventually the chains will break and Fenrir will be released. And when he is, he will devour everything. Silence. The words echoed in the office like promise and threat. Fenrir. Tenil repeated the name, savoring it. There was power in it. There was meaning. Kasimir chained me, killed my father. My brother thought he had neutralized me, but he only created something worse. Exactly. Asher approached, those eyes gleaming with something that could have been excitement. And Fenrir had children, Skal and Hati, 2 wolves that chase the sun and moon. They're also part of the prophecy. When Ragnar comes, they'll devour what they pursue. He paused. You would be Fenrir, the chained wolf who will break free, and we would be Skull and Hati. Those who chase at your side, Fenrir's hounds, Cornelia said, voice hoarse but satisfied. That would be the name. Not just one wolf, a pack. And packs are more dangerous than lone wolves. Tenel felt something crystallize inside him. It wasn't just anger now, it was purpose, direction, a clear path through the darkness. All right. He stood up, ignoring the pain, ignoring the exhaustion. Fenrir's hounds, we three begin, and we grow from there. You'll be the wolf, Cornelia said. No one knows your real identity except us. You'll need a disguise, clothes that hide your face. Something that makes you look ... different. And you'll need a symbol. Asher added, opening his notebook again, beginning to sketch something. Something your members can carry. A mark, so they know they're part of something bigger. Tenel walked to the window, looking at the city below. Thousands of flickering lights, thousands of lives. Somewhere out there, Kasimir sleeping in his mansion, completely oblivious to what was being forged in the shadows. There's one more person, Tenel said, turning back. Stella Ares. She wants to join. Cornelius raised his eyebrows. Reese's daughter. That's potentially valuable, but potentially valuable. Asher murmured, making notes. She has combat skills none of us possess. And if she's genuine in her loyalty, ... she is. Tenel said with certainty. I read her, Ate, and she read me. There's honesty there. And shared hatred of Kasimir. Then recruit her. Cornelius decided. But test her first. A small mission. Something that proves she can operate outside noble rules. If she passes, welcome to the pack. Skell, Asher said suddenly. What? If you're Fenrir, if we're the pack, then she should be Skell, the wolf that chases the sun, the one who seeks her own brilliance instead of just. Following, he looked at Tenel. Seems appropriate for someone who wants purpose beyond being a political piece. Tenel nodded slowly. Skull, yes, that works, and I would be haughty. Asher continued, that strange smile appearing again. The one who chases the moon. Always after what's in the shadows, always looking for what's hidden. He closed the notebook. Yes, this pleases me. Cornelius walked to a shelf, picking up a bottle of whiskey and 3 glasses. He poured generously, passing a glass to each of them. So it's decided. He raised his glass. Fenrir's hounds. A pack forged in revenge, moving in shadows, hunting those who think they're safe. His eyes met Tenel's. And may the gods have mercy on those who cross our path, because we won't. Tenel completed, raising his own glass. The 3 toasted, the sound of glasses clinking, echoing in the silent office. And when they drank, Tenel felt something fundamentally change inside him. The noble Lord Vorten was dying, and from the corpse, something new was being born, something with teeth and claws and insatiable hunger. The wolf had awakened, and the world didn't yet know what that meant. And so, another chapter of our saga comes to an end, but the tapestry of time still holds many plots to be revealed. To not miss the unfolding of upcoming events and continue this journey with us, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Leave your like so more listeners discover our tales and share this story with those who also yearn for new legends. What was your favorite moment from this narrative? Leave your comment below and get ready because the next chapter will soon echo here. See you next time, dear listener.